Howdy folks, welcome back to Highland Mountain Bike Park. My name's Kevin and we're about to go over this month's installment of our progression guide. In this installment, we're going to focus on pumping skills. Pumping can be done at various speeds in various terrain. Pumping is most often done on terrain like you see behind me, just basic dirt rollers. But we can also use our pumping skills in corners and also in tech as well, going over rocks and roots. So follow me as we go to a few different places on our mountain and talk about how to improve our pumping skills. All right, now we're down here in our park ready zone towards the bottom of our mountain. The park ready zone has a lot of things that are really useful for skill practice, like our practice jumps and drops, our practice turns that you might recognize from our last video, and where I'm standing right here, our practice rollers. This is a great spot to practice our pumping skills. When I think about what is pumping, I think about pumping is the foundation for riding in control over variations in the terrain. What I mean by that is as I am moving up and over variations in the terrain, my bike is moving, but my body, my head and chest are staying still and letting just that bike move underneath me. I always say it's really, really important that we learn how to keep our bike on the ground on purpose before we start taking our bike in the air on purpose, aka jumping. So really, really important that all riders get the foundations of their pumping skills before they start thinking about jumping. To start, I want to start talking about low speed pumping, or how we create or generate speed. To do that, I think about our vertical range of motion on the bike. Our vertical range of motion is how tall, fully locked out, and how small, fully bent we can get on the bike. Knowing your vertical range of motion is the foundation of our pumping skills. It's really important that before you start pumping, you first explore your vertical range of motion on the bike and make sure that you're moving as much as you can. Now I got my bike, and now I want to demonstrate and think about how we pump over rollers. If you don't know or have never ridden at a pump track, pumping is always done without pedaling, and we're always using that vertical range of movement to put force or pressure through our bike to either pump to generate speed or pump to maintain speed. When I think about generating speed, I'm traveling at a low speed, and as I go over rollers, I'm trying to press into them to create more speed. To do that, I think about pumping in two stages. The front side of the roller, or where I am going up an undulation in terrain, and then the back side of a roller where I'm going down an undulation in the terrain. I think about on the front side of a roller, when I want to generate more speed, I think about standing up really tall and then waiting for my back wheel to crest the roller. Once my back wheel comes over, I'm gonna think about getting small and pressing into my bike. That motion and action of pressing into my bike is going to accelerate my bike forward. So to think about generating speed, think about being tall on the front of the roller and then getting small on the back side of the roller and pressing into the bike. One more thing I want to focus on when you're pumping is what you're doing with your legs. So a lot of our pumping strength comes from our legs and how we press through our feet. One thing to focus on when you're pumping is to think about what you're doing with your heel. I often see people who can pump great, but they could pump a whole lot better if they just focus on extending and pressing through their heel. As you can see right here, I do not have my brakes on my bike. I'm not holding them, I'm not pressing them. And as I drop my heel on my right foot and press down, my bike wants to accelerate. It wants to go forward. So the next time you're out on the trails pumping, think about what you're doing with your heels and really pressing down and forward with the heels to generate more momentum. So now that we've got the general concept of pumping, now I want to think a little bit more about that fine tuning of our low speed pumping, how we generate speed. As I was just saying, big focus on the heels, dropping and pushing through the heels to accelerate the bike. But I want to think about a few other things too. One being our time timing of our pumping. And I'll just leave it at this. If you have the wrong timing, you're gonna feel like you're actually getting slowed down. Like each time you press into a roller, it's not giving you a speed boost, but actually subtracting from your speed. If you have the right timing, you'll always feel that natural speed boost and you know it's right. The timing is all in relation to when our back wheel crosses this apex in the roller. When our back wheel starts going on the backside and starts going downhill, that is when we're pressing through our feet to accelerate the bike. So next time you're out pumping, if you're having some trouble with it, think about your timing. If you're getting slowed down, you're not doing it at the right time. If you're feeling that speed boost, you're doing it right and you're pressing down at the right time. Last thing I'll leave you guys with is for really slow speed pumping to generate speed from almost nothing, we sometimes use our fore and aft range of movement as well on the bike, moving forward and backwards on the bike. That is, I would say, definitely more fine-tuning our pumping skills to be more and more advanced, but the more we get forward and back, we can start lunging the bike to accelerate it. Like I was saying, that's only at really, really low speeds where we need to really muscle the bike around forward and back to generate more speed, but just know that sometimes it's not just that vertical range of motion in our pumping skill. We do blend a little bit of that forward and back range of movement in as well. Now we're here on Cat Scratch Fever, towards the end of Cat Scratch Fever, just looking at this bottom section where we have a ton of high-speed rollers. Contrary to what we were just talking about in our park ready zone, low-speed pumping, the creation of speed happens often in that pump track setting where we're not pedaling and we're just using rollers to create our momentum. You may notice that often in a downhill setting, you're already traveling plenty fast enough, right? You're coming out of turns, coming on straightaways with the rollers, and you have plenty of speed to do what you want to do. What we're focusing on with high speed pumping now is just managing our speed and managing our control. What I often like to challenge people with is I tell people to ride a section of trail that they know as fast as they feel comfortable while keeping both wheels glued to the ground. This active motion of pushing our bike down into the ground is how we maintain grip and control when riding over variations in terrain. I think about one thing is really important with pumping. If you've ever had the feeling of floating off a roller, like you hit a roller, your plan was not to catch air, but suddenly you are in the air and you're floating, that is a great sign that we are out of control. If we're floating off a roller and we didn't plan on it, that means the roller jumped us and put us on a path and we are totally out of control. But keeping our bike on the ground over a roller is how we maintain control. I always say we need to learn how to keep our bike on the ground on purpose before we take our bike into the air on purpose. Going over high speed pumping, we think about just flip-flopping what we're doing with low speed pumping. At a low speed coming into a roller, I think about standing up tall before the roller and then getting small and pushing into the backside of the roller. For high speed pumping, I'm gonna flip-flop that. At the top of a roller, I'm gonna get small and I'm gonna let my bike come up into me. And then as I crest that roller, I'm gonna be pushing or extending my bike down to maintain that ground contact and control. So just to recap, low speed pumping, how we create speed, we get tall on the front and small on the back. High speed pumping, how we manage our speed, we're small on the front and tall on the back of the roller. Alrighty, so now thinking about that high speed pumping stuff, I just want to dive in a little bit deeper and think about our timing, thinking about when we absorb and when we extend. We're absorbing or getting small on the front of the roller and extending or getting tall on the back of the roller to do high speed pumping. High speed pumping also is when we're already riding at a decent trail speed and we don't want to go any faster or gain any more speed from the roller ahead, but just instead maintain our grip and control. The faster and faster we go, the quicker and quicker we have to absorb and extend. So as speeds increase, your range of movement and timing will increase too. One more thing to think about, and one common mistake I see all the time with high speed pumping, is people just absorbing and extending with their arms. So I see people all the time gumming up a roller, getting nice and small and absorbing through their upper body, and then when they go to extend, they just push those arms down and just that front wheel goes down and that back wheel comes up a bit higher. I see it all the time that people are not extending enough through their legs to push down through their heels to keep that rear wheel on the ground. So the next time you're feeling little kicks in your back wheel over variations in terrain, think about focusing on what you're doing with your legs and pressing through your legs more to keep your bike in more control. Now we're down here on Lower Cat's Paw, looking at some of the last two berms on the trail that finish off the trail. These are some beautiful, big flowing turns, and I want to talk about pumping in berms. So first, going back to our video last month, our progression guide on cornering, if you watch that and listen to the part where I talked about setup for a turn, this is where that setup kind of becomes really important. So once we really think about our braking for a turn, and once we really start getting all of our braking done before a turn and none of our braking in the turn, then we can really start thinking about pumping in the apex of the turn. So it's really, really important that all of our braking is done before the turn. If we are braking at all during the turn, we cannot effectively pump through the turn and gain more exit speed coming out of the turn. What I think about for pumping a turn is the entrance, apex, and exit. So as we look at the turn behind us, just over here to the right, this would be the entrance of the turn. Shifting towards the middle of the turn, that is our apex, and then over down here by me, this is our exit. Focusing on the apex, that is where we pump. So coming into a turn, we want to be in a nice low, ready position, and then as we enter that apex, we want to think about standing up or putting pressure through our feet and hands to slingshot us out of the turn and give us some extra exit speed. But pumping in a turn is the same feeling of low speed pumping on rollers, that feeling of getting small before our pump and then getting tall and pressing up through our bike to translate our force into the tires. All right, now we're down here on Lower Fancy Feast, taking a look at one of the smaller rock gardens on this trail. Most of our pumping talk has been surrounding around our free ride terrain, right? Our smoother trails, thinking about our dirt rollers as well as our smooth berms. But just know that you don't need just smooth terrain to do pumping on, right? We can pump in technical scenarios too. A lot of rocks and roots we can pump to gain speed on. Looking at this section behind me, the entrance to this section is just up here and the exit is going this way. Right here on this entrance to this rock garden, we've got some great dirt and a little bit of an upslope. So we could press into the ground right here on this good dirt and gain a little bit more momentum coming up and into the rock garden. One tip I got for just general tech riding is that momentum is your friend, and the more momentum you carry, the more you can pump and continue to carry more and more speed. The more we slow down, we start to feel like we're getting hung up on every little rock and root. The more we just kind of let the bike do its thing and let it move, the better it feels. But coming in this rock garden right here, we definitely want to pump in this area, but also looking at the exit of this rock garden down here, we want to think about pumping this small little backside down here. If we really press into this, we're going to have more momentum exiting into that next section. Not sure if you could tell, but this is a pretty flat section of trail. So any type of flat technical riding that you're doing, it's really helpful to be pumping in that tech to keep your speed, because pumping is a lot less work than pedaling. Now let's take a look and ride this thing. All Alrighty folks, well that pretty much about wraps up today's talk on pumping. I want to recap really quick the difference of the two types of pumping we were talking about, the low speed and high speed pumping. Pumping refers to maintaining ground contact and control, either to gain a boost in speed or to maintain a certain speed and level of control. Low speed pumping is when we're pumping to gain speed. High speed pumping is when we're pumping just to maintain the speed and control that we have. Going back to what I was saying earlier, if you are ever hitting a roller and getting that feeling that you're floating off a roller, that's a sign that we are not pumping actively enough and we're not doing enough to maintain our ground contact and control. Thinking about what you're doing out on the trails, the next time you're out on the trails, if you're ever getting that floating feeling over rollers and variations in terrain, just remind yourself to be more active on the bike, move more, and be more aggressive when you're pumping to maintain that ground contact and control. I hope everyone got something out of today's pumping talk, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next one. Next month's progression guide in August will cover jumping, so I look forward to seeing you all there. Have a great ride out on the trails.